All right. I wanted to go back to something sort of in the way I did it before. When I started with Memories of Ice, it was audio only. Now, this isn't going to be audio only because I do like being able to talk with someone, and I don't know, just makes it different. But when I was doing it, I did it that way so that I could have my head down in my notes or the highlights and, the book open. And as I was doing that, it's a different way of kind of talking with you guys. Sometimes I like to do just the on the couch reactions, be it at the end of the chapter or midway, and that's kind of fun, and that's more of like a me talking to you. But the podcast form, I don't know what it is, but it just lets me internalize it and not think so much about it being a big show, and it just helps. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit more in this one, and some of what I will say might be, as all of them, like I might be wrong with a lot of my predictions, and I often am wrong, but sometimes I'll stumble upon something. And that's usually in those moments where instead of doing like a reaction of the plot, I'm actually trying to dig into some of the themes and what I think is going to happen. So if you just want the plot reaction of exciting stuff, I'll talk about the plot clearly here, but it's going to be more of a long form sort of thing for a couple of these scenes, especially since I want to go on my notes and try to get the stuff that I thought was relevant, whether I'm on track of where it's going or not. So I hope you enjoy this. I don't know how it's going to go, but there's going to be some things where I'm going to be trying to see try to tap into what I was thinking already yesterday. And I tried to do this. I started for about 5 minutes and thought this is going to take way too long. It's too late, but let me try this again today. So some of this might be a little bit new because it has been 24 hours and Malazan just packs so much in. So it did start with Cotillion and Edgewalker, and I'm so glad that I read Knight of Knives for what extra little we get about Edgewalker. Cotillion is still interesting, and Cotillion being at the start, now that I've read the whole chapter, it seems more it's more interesting because we end with a conversation about where Cotillion is. So I love that. And I should mention that I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get a prologue for this book, but it makes sense if this is really supposed to be kind of like linked with Dust of Dreams. Dust of Dreams didn't have an epigraph or an epilogue. So I was kind of disappointed because the prologues have been so exciting for all of these books. And really exciting. They've been almost like these lore dumps. Like you've been waiting for just this, it's like whatever you'd call it. It's like my elixir. It just charges you up for the next book. They've been so good. But this one, chapter 1, packs some of that punch that some of these prologues have had, as it kind of bounces between all these scenes. And I love what they're doing. They are seeing these dragons that are chained to these like crosses. And I wonder if this is the same pathway that the people took in, was it House of Chains when they saw that? They ended up in like the Leosin realm or Talan or whatever. So that's interesting. And then it goes to Calm, this four-color sail that we know from House of Chains that was under that rock. And Calm has Icarium, which I still don't understand how they kind of exist in these different states and realms and stuff. Like Hood's body woke up on a throne. His eyes open. but then also he like died before. So, it seems like there was a hood that was just frozen on a throne for so long, but there was also a hood that got decapitated or whatever. So I don't understand that. But also, like, Shadow Throne is around but can't be seen by these other ones. So, I'm just a little confused by some of that. But some version of Akarium is here, and it's chained to a hill, spread-eagled with this bone web. And she's going to keep him there for some big decision. Next time she shows up, she's either going to kill Akarium, and I guess a reason to do that would be if he's waking up and he looks like he's going to have another one of his tantrums and kill everyone. So she would just break his neck right there, or wake him. So that seems like I'm either going to use him as a weapon by waking him, or maybe wake him trusting that I can calm him down. I don't know which of those. It's got to be one of those. Or I'm just going to not take the risk and I'm going to kill him. But I'm going to keep him here just in case I want to use him. So that is very, very, very interesting. And I think it's also interesting that there's reference to bone. These are always mentioned as multi-limbed, too many limbed, long-limbed. So, I mean, I don't know if it has whatever. I thought it was interesting. We have Leozans, and they are seeing chained Alaint as well. So again, I keep thinking, is this that same pathway? We get a crippled god POV, which, to be honest, I can't remember much about it other than it was kind of cool to get that. We get back to Cotillion and Edgewalker seeing these Alaint in chains, and then we get a little scene with Carol and Mael, two of my favorites. Love Carol from /Caruli / whoever else from Memories of Ice. And going back to, since we just had Draconis, he was just cursed by Calor. The curses were on him, and then he sent out curses. But or was that a part of his curse? But the one for Carol is like getting cast into irrelevance. Wasn't it something like that? Can't remember. And then she had another one. I really should go back and double check exactly what those were. But I was about to say that it seems like they are beating Calor's curses, which also makes me think, what if the same thing would happen on that guy? They finally can let him freaking die. Because he's going to linger forever, but be within like the confines of still mortality or whatever. They talk about Tavor, and Tavor still wanting to remain unwitnessed, which makes you think there's more to Tavor. And I don't know if that means more to Tavor in the sense of like Taishran, Quick Ben, Silver Fox. I mean, maybe more like Bug. Like if this is Tavor's been there for a while, and isn't she the oldest sister? What if she was like adopted, and then Ganos was, who knows? Who knows? But she wants to remain unwitnessed, and I don't know exactly what that means yet. Udinus has a scene with Fear and Onrak, and it's like, it's implied that Udinus has to lead them. I can't really remember that scene so much. But we'll get back to them. And then we get back to Ganos, which everyone knows that Ganos is going to be a big part of this book. And I think Tavor. It's got to be It's got to be those two, especially. But everyone knew he was going to be a big part of this. And I assume here he is over in Colant because there are kids coming out of the cracks, like in the caves. And it's like they're gathering them up and deciding if they should give them back to the enemy, which I think, wasn't really something he was going to entertain anyway. But they're between this, they're looking at this army, this enemy. And I assume, again, that they're in Colant because that's where this chain of child refugees just came from. And it makes you think, what the heck is really happening in Colant? But he's just going to wait them out. They bring up, or Noto Boyle, who is the High Mage. Is that what they call him? And Ganos is the High Fist. So as the adjunct for Tavor, and then now this High Fist, it's just very interesting that they are in this situation. So they are gathering these guys, and there's note taken that Paren just keeps walking out and is almost like taunting the people on the other side. And they wonder, would Anomander Rake, what if he would have done that? Or da-da-da-da-da. But I took out of that Anomander Rake doesn't use fear. I don't know if that was explicitly stated or if I just wrote that. I can't remember. But he wouldn't really use fear as a weapon. And I don't know if exactly that's what Paren is doing, but it seems like that's what he's going for. But he's going to be like the itch that they can't scratch. And I know that was in, I think, the scene with Shadow Throne. So he only answers to the Empress, but then it's said that the Empress is dead. Like, he says the Empress is dead, and I don't know if that's actually what happened, because I haven't seen the Empress around since, I think, the end of Bone Hunters. That's the last word we really get of how she's doing. And she was in a precarious situation, too. Man, I need to I need to pay more attention to that on the second go around. Like, I was so bugged about some of that end of Bone Hunters that I don't think I appreciated that last interaction between Lacine and Tavor and what was said there. Anyway, is the Empress dead, or did I read that weird? And there's also note that I found interesting that Gano says that the children are finally acting like children for the first time today, which I don't know exactly what that means. I picture them kind of in the same way that Silver Fox was more to her, but she was a child, and I think it was like Cotillion had some of this, like Rebirth. Sormo, was that the kid from Deadhouse? Like Sin and Grub? Aren't they kind of more to them than... So is this another thing where all of these kids are kind of in one of those sorts of situations? I don't know. See? Maybe something will stick. Maybe not. But this is where my mind goes for it. Or went with it. Paren is seen day after day. We've seen that. And he says about Anomander Rake, he says, I miss him. Can you believe that? Like, who'da thunk, or whatever he said. Imagine that. And I just love Anomander Rake. Steven Erikson did so well with writing about that character. And the specific position he was in Toll the Hounds, and what he did for the Tistandi, and in convincing Mother Dark to re-embrace or whatever. And then there was that guy who, the mage who felt washed up. And man, Toll the Hounds was the best. I don't care what anyone says. That was the best one. Okay, moving on. Anomander Rake. The snake was just a hint of the horrors of Colant. That's what I... Anyway, we wonder what's going on here. And of course, Ganos would be doing whatever is the most important thing. Because, in my opinion, he's got to be the most important. He was the first one in the prologue. He's the master of the deck. He's later called Dragon Master, which we'll get to that. He has this dragon banner. And in fantasy, the dragons, and in mythology, like the dragons, you can't beat the dragons. You have to have something special on your side. You have to have the special sword, or you have to have some kind of blessing from deity, or you had to be the chosen one to defeat a dragon. And it just all signs point to Paren, or Ganos Paren, having that in this book. I mentioned way earlier that it's like, because of all these POVs, everyone has an important role to play, and I do think that, but doesn't it feel like Ganos has the lion's share? And he's the... anyway, we'll get to that, because I think it's very, very cool that he is... dragons represent chaos. And if he's the Dragon Master, that's cool. That's the one who can overcome chaos. And again, chaos as water. Water, we could go down a big rabbit hole about that, how people have all used water and as this symbolism for chaos or whatever. So I think it's very cool that Ganos has that kind of way about him. So we have Karsa, and he says, I knew a warrior once, awakening from a wound to the head, believing he was a dog. And what are dogs if not loyalty, lacking wits? I really like Karsa, by the way, and it does seem like he is growing. For some reason, that sentence just kind of stood out, because that was really bizarre. What was his name? Delum? Was that the one that turned into a dog in his mind? He dreams of the fallen already. Like, he has such an interesting role, where so much of his life before that was destroying the children. And now he has this other role where he's already freed a bunch of people. But now we have children. We have children in the center of, well, a part of this, in Dust of Dreams, the snake, that was definitely like this little hint of what was coming in Crippled God, I think, as one of the main things with these children. So, I mean, Karsa coming in to free the children, right? After saying, a total flip of kill all the children. I think that's cool. And then he sleeps with Samar, which I don't know if I've mentioned it on YouTube, but when I first thought of Samar Dev, I always pictured like an old hag. Like, I picture like Mother Teresa, which, I mean, after saying old hag, but that's who I had in my mind. And I think probably everyone else has this, hot witch or whatever, and I said with a W, witch. But she, I think that's, so in my mind, my Karsa has been hitting on like an old hag. That's just his thing. And so now he gets, see, in my mind, it's old lady Samar. So anyway, moving on. We have Anomander. This was the first like amazing scene that really knocked me off my socks. And Apsalara shows up, and he says, if you're not going to kill me, there's wine on the table to your left. And in every way, Anomander is living in the shadow of Anomander Rake. Like, everyone loves this guy. Everyone, well, not everyone, but the Tistandi, what he did for them after that. People who were not Tistandi respected the guy. Apsalara, or like people who I think maybe knew him from long before, who hadn't seen him after all that time, probably would be, we heard some crazy things about Anomander's past. And I think they'd be shocked by his change, which that's why I just think Toll the Hounds was just the best. But now Anomander is living under his shadow. And Apsalara, I think, as a token of respect, even though she spent all this time down there because of Anomander, even though he was just protecting himself from assassination, right? Like that whole time she wanted to get out and kill Anomander, I think. Wasn't that the case? And then he shows up and he frees her. Probably the last person any of them expected, since how many of them went in there, last person they saw being Anomander. And then he goes up and frees them all. Like, that's freaking cool thematically. There's a lot we could go down for that. But I just was knocked away by that, and now she wants to be there and help Anomander, or help Anomander. Hold on one second. Anyway, I thought that was just an amazing scene. So she recognizes this in Anomander, and she even trembles. I don't want this to go too long, so let me just... Yeah, he's just living under his shadow, and they are... it's even in his name. And she wants to stay on his side, and if not by his side, to maybe stay by the side of one of the counselors so she can be close. And they talk about Clip, who's below. And he is Anomander's only prisoner, by the way, which I thought was interesting. She says to Anomander that the Tistandi have some blind spots, and they kind of need to take on some advice from people who are maybe different culturally than they are. So she would kind of be able to give that perspective, I think is what she's getting at. And she tells him that she doesn't hold a grudge on Anomander Rake. She tells Anomander that he needs to go out and be Mother Dark's breath, because he's just been kind of holed in. Like, people, think just the pressure that's on him. And I think this advice that she is saying echoes what is being said by Shadow Throne. Yeah, she tells him that she needs him to go out and be Mother Dark's breath. She wants him to go to do... Oh man, my writing. She wants him to do what his father always wanted to do. What is that? He says. Shall we find out? Which, man, that's an interesting storyline to find out, to see how that's going to go. That's amazing. I'm so excited by that. Because I like Anomander. And now we get, I think, the last scene, and this is Shadow Throne showing up to Paren, to Ganos. So we're back to Ganos. And he kind of makes a kid shriek, which I just like Shadow Throne the way he is. He calls Paren Dragon Master, so there's that again, which is like the ultimate title. It's like, you are above the chaos. You are like the ultimate order, because that's the antidote for chaos, is like the ultimate order. And again, we have that back and forth, especially shown with like the Leosin and the Andi, and then this assault on the Grey Edur. We've seen it a few times, but now it's like Ganos seems like this ultimate middle between, not order. He'd be like the middle or whatever. I'm such an idiot sometimes, but you know what I mean. And he asks, where's Cotillion? This triggers Shadow Throne. He's so sick of Ganos asking that question. And again, where's Cotillion? He's talking to Edgewalker, or he was at the start of this. He like screeches it out. Two, I think, Talani Mass appear when they hear the shriek, but they don't see Shadow Throne, which that also was like, I forgot that kind of happens. So he could be in the room and people wouldn't know it, or is he just, because he's the master of shadow, he could just hide in nothing? Also, I just, that was a big part of people being able to make it into Raraku, right? Hiding in the shadow. Didn't Pearl do that, and Callum? Anyway, just freaking cool. It's freaking awesome. And all of this stuff makes you just want to go through the series again right away. He mentions that the siege is meaningless. Shadowthorn mentions this. And Paren, Gano says being a dragon master is meaningless. They are creatures of chaos. And he says the end begins here, doesn't it? And kind of like Anomander being told he has to go out, I feel like that also echoes what Shadowthrone tells Ganos, because doesn't he tell him that he also has to kind of go out, but Paren says, no, I'm going to like sit here indefinitely or whatever it is, as like, like I have no idea. But he is, I think that yeah, he just has the most lion's share, or he has the lion's share of being just the most crucial character, I think, right? Or Tavor. Tavor seems right up there too. Shadowthrone is sick of hearing the cotillion question. I'm almost done here. He says this is an alliance, not a marriage. So like, quit asking all this stuff. And then Paren makes a wager with Shadowthrone that the people over there won't attack. And it seems like Paren has just been aggravating him, and I think the tension is rising, but he's going to make this, because they seem so powerful out there. But he's going to make this wager that they won't attack today. Paren will be their itch. And this is like a top 10 scene for me in the series. If Paren wins, he gets a big favor from Shadowthrone. And vice versa. If Paren doesn't win, they attack, and he at least lives, then Shadowthrone's going to get a favor. Big fat favor. He tells Shadowthrone he wants what he wants. He doesn't really say it outright here, even though we assume this is like the cotillion question. It shocks Shadowthrone because Shadowthrone says, well, won't cotillion have a say on the matter? And Paren says that Shadowthrone, I think this is implying if Paren wins, that Shadowthrone will answer to cotillion later. And this really offends Shadowthrone because he doesn't answer to anyone. But Ganos is like, he's going to invert things. And I don't know if this is just an example of that. And I don't exactly know what that means still. But Shadowthrone wants Paren's... and what Shadowthrone wants, this is even more interesting. If Shadowthrone wins, he wants the faith that Ganos has that she, just like it doesn't say who, that she is still out there. And I assume this is Tavor. Because it also, and Ganos says, I can't sell you faith. I just have that faith. I can't sell that to you. And Shadowthrone is freaking out. And I don't know if this is, it seems like even Shadowthrone is losing faith because he also relies on maybe what she has the ability to do with this Ototaral sword or whatever, because she's Tavor. Clearly, let me actually go to and she's just freaking out, but let me read. This will be the only thing I read, I think. Because this scene was amazing. I seek the source of I seek the source of your faith. The cane waggled. This is Shadow Throne. That she's out there. That she seeks what you seek. And that's a big point of it. If she's out there, does she even seek what you seek? That's two gambles. That upon the plane of blood and chains you will find her. Foreshadowing. And stand facing her. So this is a convergence, another Paren convergence. Sorry, this is exactly how my mom used to read to me. It's like, just read the freaking thing. Stop having all these tangents of, anyway. That upon the plane of blood and chains, you will find her and stand facing her, as if you two had planned this all along, which I damned well know you haven't. You don't even like each other. It's like these guys know the plan. They know the bigger plan, but it all hinges on Tavor also showing up there, I guess. Right? But Paren wants to know where Cotillion is, where I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand why he wants to know so bad. So, that's the first chapter. How long was this? 31 minutes. I hope this was okay. I won't do this for this whole book unless it kept being really heavy or, a lot of stuff to consider. I imagine some of the chapters I'll do short, but if, we've been through this whole journey, and I would be remiss if I missed anything now. After, I want to make sure I really listen in on these things. I hope this was interesting. So leave a like if it was. And, yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.